Well, it's live and it's recording.
Okay,
Are we good?
I think so.
Okay. Salutations, Sat Stackers. I'm gonna start over. Salutations, Sat Stackers and kin. You're listening to a boy named Sue. That's Mr. Sue to you, aka Phil Gibson, only on the Bitcoin Made Simple podcast network. What's today? Today is Friday, July the. I never said what day it is when I do
It's
these.
the 8th.
It's July the 8th. Want to say 8th? I thought that was yesterday though. Anyway, so yeah, before we get rolling again, big shout out to our sponsor, the Bitbox O2 hardware wallet. Not your keys, not your cheese. You know how it is. Super sleek, sexy, simple, whatever Luke likes to call it. And yeah, a lot of crazy stuff. If you've been paying attention to the show, we cover all the mishaps and just people getting poor because they don't own the Bitcoin and when they leave it on the exchange. And so it goes bye-bye. So if you don't want your Bitcoin to go bye-bye, then get that shit on a hardware wallet and don't be an idiot. Use the promo code Bitbox, use the promo code Bitcoin Made Simple and get 5% off. And yeah, don't have fun staying poor. Have fun being rich because you have Bitcoin. Anyway, I'm joined with the illustrious founder of this very podcast network, Cory, Tucek. I always want to say Clipson. And whenever I tell people about you, they're like, oh, the Swan guy? Like, no, not the Swan guy. But
One day they'll know that there's more than one Cory in the Bitcoin space, but I am honored to be the other Cory. And it's funny because I think it must be something with our name because a lot of the things that he says I want to say out loud, but I'm so new to the space that I haven't necessarily gained my footing to be able to have the cred to say it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's fellow Cory gang member, and one day we're gonna take down all the Bens.
All the Bens. Yeah. Cory is doing a solid job of saying the quiet parts out loud, isn't he?
He sure does.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is like as Daniel Prince says whenever I have him on as a guest, he says it's postman's holiday because I don't have to come up with the questions.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, some questions for you then. By the way, if you're questioning why I'm wearing sunglasses, it's because yes, I know it look like a tool, but I don't care because this way I'm looking at my computer screen, which is lower than where the webcam is. So I want to look active and engaged by you being able to not tell what I'm looking at. But anyway,
we should figure out a trick for that.
I mean, it's just wearing sunglasses and looking like a badass. Like there's no trick.
There's no trick to the trade.
No.
Apparently, though, you and Luke always wear the singlets and the muscle shirts. So I guess I need to start wearing those. I didn't know there was a podcast network dress code.
I won't be mad if you don't do that.
Are you saying you don't want to see my pipes?
I didn't say anything.
Yeah. That came out weird. You want to see my pipe?
It's better than laying pipe.
Do you want to see my pipe?
Anyway, let's talk about you, dude. You wrote an awesome article, very, very prescient in this bear market. But let's just kind of go back to Cory. We can talk about movies plus too as well. But let's talk about you even before Bitcoin. Where were you into? What were you doing with your life? And how did that lead to where we are now?
Well, I was going to play in the NHL, and then that was whenever I was like 3 or 4. I realized I was going to do that. And then no, I mean I played like literally my entire life was hockey, focused around hockey. I mean I played baseball too up to high school, but and I played hockey all the way through college.
In what state? Because I'm in Texas and no one talks about hockey.
Yeah, in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So yeah, we're hockey focused here. I mean, we're football focused, and when the Pirates don't suck, we're baseball focused too. But yeah, so hockey was my life. Spending weekends on buses and trips going all over to play. And but I always loved movies, and that's always something I wanted to get into. So I tell people frequently, and my wife gets mad at me because I can't say this in front of the kids, because I say, I'll just like come out and say college is a scam. And and she's like, well, no, I want the kids to make their own mind up, so I don't say that in front of them, but I certainly won't push them into college, because I tell people I wouldn't have gone to college if it wasn't for hockey. I only went to play um, because I wanted to keep playing. I wanted to keep going as long as possible and see how far I could go. Um, and and because of that, I was like, well, while I'm in college, I might as well study something. And I was always interested in, making videos with my friends and movies, and I loved movies and thought I had a pretty good eye for it. So I did film studies, and also I think there was like a minor in like digital media or some kind of BS like that. So at the University of Pittsburgh. And when I graduated from there in 2009, we had graduation in the basketball arena. And right afterwards, they were changing it over to an MMA arena to film a movie called Warrior, which was a MMA movie with Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton. And so I kind of took it upon myself to get into the movie industry that way, because my parents and everybody was like, I mean, I can't blame anyone. It's a sensible thing. You come out of college, it's like, oh, I want to work in the movie business, and everybody's like, okay, well, what are you going to do to get money? um and I just happened to be lucky that there was a movie filming there, so I didn't have to like move anywhere. And I that summer, even though I graduated college, I went back to my lifeguarding job and was lifeguarding during the day. And then one night I found out where they were shooting the movie at. And so I drove there, and I pretended I walked up to the set. I had looked on IMDb, and I had seen the producer's name was John Kelly. I had no idea if he would even be there, but I was such a noob and so like naive that I was like, of course he'll be there. But like, they're not always there. So I walk up and I say to a production assistant, I said, hi, I'm here to meet with John Kelly. And they get on the walkie. They're like, does anyone have a 20 on John Kelly? And like, oh, he's at base camp. I don't know what the hell base camp is. And so then I get in the van. They're like, we'll get a van for you. A van pulls up, takes me to base camp. I'm dropped off amidst all these trailers, and I'm like, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. So I walk into a room. I had looked him up online, like Google imaged him, and I had a rough idea as to what he looked like. And I saw what I thought was him, and I just went up and said, hey, John, I'm Cory Tucek. Remember you said I could job shadow you? And he was like, oh yeah, and just like went with it, like totally believed it. And
What year is this?
2009.
Okay.
So you were probably like 10. But
No.
but but yeah, he totally believed it and was like, oh, okay. And he just started taking me around set, introducing me to everybody, and showing me the ins and outs, like this is catering, this is where blah blah blah, and then all these different things. And at the end of the day, he was like, hey, if you want to come back and do it again tomorrow, that's cool. So I did that for like 2 weeks, where I was basically there as like an extra set of hands.
Yeah.
um
Free labor. Woo.
yeah, and just like standing there kind of feeling out of place, feeling awkward. And
But before you continue, what is this guy's like, resume? What has he
um
worked on?
before that, he did the movie Into the Wild with Emil Hirsch.
Oh, okay.
um I forget, like, honestly, I haven't looked
Wait,
at
that's
the
about
resume.
the guy that goes out into the wilderness and dies, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, no, it
Good,
was a
good,
really good
good
movie.
book. Good book.
Yeah. I haven't looked at his resume recently, but I mean, I know he's done some like he works with like Jeff Probst, who does like Survivor,
Oh,
and stuff like that. So it's funny because there was at one point later in my life, in my profession, I come across a movie that I'm looking to acquire the rights for, and he was the producer on it. So like I contacted him directly and was like,
What movie was that?
oof, I don't even remember. Um,
So obviously it did not happen.
it could have. I honestly don't know. I've looked at like thousands of movies at this point. Um, and most of them are ones that people would never have even heard of. Um, so yeah, so anyways, this guy, he was, super cool. But then one day I was there and like I didn't get any FaceTime with him. He was on the phone all day and I kind of felt like out of place. And I was like, all right, I wore out my welcome. This was it. This was fun while it lasted. So I drove home, went to my friend's house, and I didn't have, email on my phone at the time because remember I'm old. Um, so I go on like their computer to check my email, and I was just gonna send them an email and say, hey man, thanks for everything. But when I logged in, I had an email from him and it said, do you want to work for money tomorrow? And I was like, yeah. And so then my job was to call extras because they were trying to fill the arena with people to be extras in the background of the big fight. So they needed like 10,000 people, and they had 10,000 people on a list, and I just had to call them
Dope.
and go down the line and say, hey, are you going to be there? And it was a yes, no, maybe. And I had to catalog all that. So that's what I did for days on days on end. And then from that, I got a credit on that, I think, as like an extras casting assistant or something.
It's cool.
And then
Is this still for the Warrior?
Yep, yeah.
Cool.
So then that one ends. And then they put me in touch with somebody. They say, hey, there's this Denzel Washington movie coming to town. Do you want to work on it? And I was like, well, sure. So they put me in touch with someone. It was called Unstoppable. It had Chris Pine in it. It's like about an out of control train that they have to chase down and save.
I saw that. Yeah.
You did?
Like
Well,
2011 or something.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
2000. I think it came out in 2010.
Anyway, I saw it.
But yeah, that one, it was funny. So I remember like talking to Tom Hardy, what I mean, and he doesn't know who I am, but I was after Warrior ended, we were just standing there, on set, and he said something like, it was the last day. He said, oh, you have something lined up after this, whatever his accent is. And and I said, oh, this Denzel Washington movie. And then he goes, oh, cool. I said, what about you? He said, I'm going to work on this Christopher Nolan movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. What I should have said is, hey, can I go with you? But that ended up being Inception.
Damn.
I was going to work on. So, but anyways, Unstoppable was fun. And I spent some of my time in the nose of the train with a space heater. I spent like a month in the woods. Like the most absurd job ever. Like I literally stood at like this crossroads of like where like a dirt bike once drove over the train tracks, and they were legally required to have somebody there to like, not get hit by a train that was going like 80 miles per hour down the tracks. And so I literally was like in the Pennsylvania wilderness for like probably 5 or 6 weeks straight. And if that doesn't make you almost go insane, then I don't know what will. But yeah, so that was fun. And sorry if I'm boring people if you heard me talk about this on Princey's podcast before, but it's yeah, we did everything on that one. Like there's a part of the movie where like grain is shooting out of a train, and like we were inside the train like shooting like shoving like cereal out so that it like was going everywhere. We had a big explosion. We blew up a train. And the funny thing they do with the train, so what they do when they do the blow up like explosion is they'll pack it full of like I think in this instance they packed it full of Apple Smacks, the cereal.
Okay. What, you mean Apple Jacks?
No, like what's that one that's like the Smacks with a frog on it?
Honey Smacks.
Yes. So the Apple Smacks, what an idiot. But whenever like, because if you ever see something blow up, it's a lot of black smoke.
Yeah.
So in order to get the nice big orange fireball, they packed it with the honey smacks, so that whenever the flames went up, they like continued to like catch the cereal on fire and make a much big fireball.
Oh,
Um,
that's great.
so yeah, we blew up a train, um, and I joke with my wife because I became buddies with Rosario Dawson. Um, on that, we were
I
sick
don't know who
buddies.
any of these people are
I
other
know.
than Denzel Washington.
I'm name dropping, and you're like, I have no idea.
It's
Um,
okay.
but uh, then yeah, I moved into some other big movies like I Am Number Four, and oh Jesus Christ, there's like a
So
Taylor Lautner one, and
what is your title for all of these?
production assistant,
Okay,
which was
yeah.
better known
PA,
as, yeah,
Gaffer.
PA, just basically the bitch that
Yeah.
is like, hey, go do this. Hey, like we need somebody to stand out in the rain and let somebody Denzel know when it's time for him to come on set. Like
Okay.
fun stuff like that. It's I'll tell you, the glamour wore off like the third week of Unstoppable. The Hollywood glamour was off for me, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, this isn't fun anymore. Um, but I just knew at that point I was like, I gotta like figure my way through this industry. Um, so I started working on independent movies while the big movies were out of town, um, and the independent movies, I met producers on there, and I was like, hey, I want to do what you do and jump the ladder, and all that kind of stuff, and started learning from them. And from that, like, then got connected to a bunch of different producers that had like connections to, like, not proud to say, but like the Weinstein Company. Not that I knew anything or did anything there, but
Dope.
was getting to be a part of conversations that had a bigger picture distribution in mind. And I thought I had an angle basically back in like 2011 or 12. I was like, streaming, like, this is the big thing, and everything is like, all the studios are going to lose power, and it's all going to shift in this direction. But I need to get my foot in the door, and so I started my own distribution company called Turnkey Films. And on a Women of Prayer, we went out to the American film market. My son was like 3 months old, and went out there to AFM, and had like I had two independent movies that were shot for a grand total of $10,000. Like, they were like, one of them was called Teddy Bomb, and it was about a teddy bear that had a bomb in it. And the other one was called Sleepwalkers, and that one was pretty decent, like really, really well done for its budget. But like,
Wait, so you wrote and directed these?
no, 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 no. I acquired their rights to distribute them.
Hmm.
Um, so then, I sold, like, made them a little bit of money, but then because I did that, like, other people started finding my company, and so I built up this sales and distribution company where I was going around to all the major markets and festivals around the world all of a sudden, and selling, taking small movies and selling them to, like, you know selling them to China, selling them
Nice.
to Australia. Like, it just, you go to these markets and there's buyers from all over the world. They sit down and they say, hey, we want, we're looking for a bunch of family films. We'll buy this slate of 10 family films from you for 50 grand or something like that. And but I also knew while I was doing that like that the writing was on the wall there, like that was going to die because DVDs were no longer a thing, and or were slowly dying or quickly dying at that time. And then broadcast, like TV as we know, is just like dead now. It's a shell of itself. Because that's where a lot of those deals would come from. It would be like, one of the TV channels in Australia would be like, hey, can we license this for Australia for 7 years or whatever? And you're like, okay. And then it slowly was turning into, okay, the only way you're going to make money is if you sell it to Netflix or Amazon or one of the streamers. um I started doing that and like had good connections there and was making, not like great money, but just like good enough that like, my wife didn't have to work and she was a stay-at-home mom and we were taking care of everything. And I got comfortable there. And then that's whenever Movies Plus started to fester in my mind. So stop me if you have any questions, or if not, I'll just keep rolling.
Now that this is great. I mean, we kind of like talked off mic like a couple months back where you were doing sales for a while. So there was kind of like a gap where you took a break from film. Is that right?
Oh yeah. So from see from there was like a 2-year period that I worked for Comcast, Universal, selling TV ads. And I basically did that. Like I was kind of at my wit's end with like, okay, I'm not going to work on productions anymore. And I
You were
need to
done
get,
being a movie bitch.
yes, I was done running and getting coffee for people, which people don't know. So like when you see in the credits, you'll see, and I'm not like, I don't mean to disparage what assistant directors do,
Yeah.
but it just wasn't what I wanted. And I think there's a lot of people that they want to become an assistant director because it looks good. Like you tell people I'm an assistant director on such and such, I'm an assistant director on the Avengers. I mean, I got offered to work in the AD department on the first Avengers movie. And this was like around the time that I was like, I can't do that anymore. Like I just can't be the movie bitch anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and it was like, I was on the path. Like I could have done it because you basically you need like 600 days working on a union show as a production assistant in the AD department. And then you can apply to join the Directors Guild of America. And then once you join the Directors Guild of America, you can become a first, second, or second assistant director. Which second is the stupidest thing. Just call it the third assistant director. But they're literally called the second assistant director. And so like I was like, at first I was like, oh, this, like I told my parents when I first started like on Unstoppable, I was like, I'm on my track to become an assistant director. And they were like, that's great. And then I realized, I was like, wait a minute. So the first assistant director just stands next to the director and he relays information like, okay, we're rolling, or like, hey, we need, a gaffer. We need, they need lights over, like whatever, or all right, send the actors back. We'll do rehearsal in 20. Like you're just doing a schedule. I was like, so you're not
Okay.
directing the movie. The director's directing the movie. So then I looked at the second
It's just
AD.
an upper tier movie bitch.
Yeah. Then I looked at the second AD, and the second AD, their job was to like
And
sit.
also, I don't want to like disparage, like, it's just fun to say like
Yeah,
movie
yeah, no,
bitch, but
no, no.
like, you have to do this in every kind of like profession or
Oh
whatever. I
yeah,
mean, if you're out there in the field, like, you're going to need these people. Like, I don't have a problem like doing stuff like that myself. It's just,
yeah.
you know,
Just to get
any
started.
movie people like listening, I don't think they think that we're disparaging them. And don't
No,
get
no.
these.
But like I always tell people in the movie business, you have to like be realistic with yourself of like, what do you want
Yeah.
out of your career? And I was just sitting there looking at like, I wanted to be a creative person. I wanted to have an impact on the business, frankly. And I was just like, because the second assistant director, their whole job is to make up the schedule. So that's what they do the whole day. And then the second assistant director, their job is to like bring the actors back and forth to set and stuff like that. So it was just like, I was like,
Just a ladder of middlemen.
yeah, I was like, I'm gonna really commit to like getting 600 days, which is gonna take me, you know, probably 2.5 years to accumulate
Yeah.
that many days, if not 3 years. And then I have to apply for the DGA and get in, and then I can become a second assistant director. And maybe 5 to 10 years later, I can work my way up to a first assistant director. So, like at this point, we're talking like 15 years from now, I can be a first AD standing next to a director telling actors, okay, go back and come back in 20 minutes. And I was like, no, that's not what I want. Like, and so, yeah, so I like, it was honestly, it was the Avengers. I think the last movie I worked on was The Dark Knight Rises.
Dope.
Um, and I only did that one really because I wanted to be able to say I was in Gotham City, because Gotham City is like a mythical place. So you can't be there unless, like I told my wife, I said, I just want to be there because, like, it's like Atlantis. That, like, if it pops up out of the ocean, like, it's only there at that time, like where the set was, that is Gotham City. But like, if you go back there, it's not Gotham City. It's only during that day.
Where
So
was it
like,
actually filmed?
it was
Which
between Pittsburgh, London, Chicago. I think that was mainly it. Um, and because they kind of hodgepodge the cities together to make
yeah,
it look like a different city. So, anyways, yeah, it was after.
continuity.
Yeah, so after that, I then, like, the Avengers. It was like, oh man, like I could really rise up the ladder here, and I was like, nope. So I took this job because I told my wife I wanted to get some business experience, like selling. So I got into like the sales, like selling ads and getting in the corporate world. I think it was good to like kind of cut my teeth that way, because otherwise I would have looked like an idiot walking into like business meetings trying to sell movies.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, all of these experiences is just you working on all the skills you need to get where you are now.
yeah.
And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize if they're working towards something, like they need to have like that set of skills and in their tool belt to actually execute what they ultimately want to accomplish.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, they all play a role in getting me to where I am. And then, like, well, it's funny too, because like, so if you're a production assistant on a set, you're basically like in pure panic for like 16 hours a day, because you like your job is to be attentive to the walkie talkie. Like, you have a walkie in your ear and you just listen, and the moment somebody needs something, if you have to decide, am I the person that's close enough that can take care of that? If so, I got to take care of it. So you're just like, it's this miserable life where you're just like on edge all day. And um and then, like, you work, like, you're the first to show up, you're the last to leave. And it got to the point, I was working on a movie, I would get home and I remember thinking to myself, this was towards the end, where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, if I pass out at the front door, at best I have 5 hours of sleep. Like, if I slept on the porch as soon as I got home, didn't do anything, didn't eat, didn't have time to myself, didn't take a shower, I would have 5 hours of sleep. It was like, oh my God. And the longest day I ever worked was 27 and a half hours
Yeah.
straight, nonstop. I wanted to die. I made a ton of money that day though, because of overtime. But it
It's
was like,
3.5 days, like
yeah,
working days.
uh-huh.
It's
Yeah, I
bullshit.
started at 3 o'clock on Saturday and finished at 6:30 on Sunday.
Yeah.
And
I want to, like, these positions, like these middleman bitch positions, not just the film industry, but everywhere, they
mhm,
must be just constructs of the bureaucracy that just kind of like forms naturally in any industry. So the directors and people can like stay there
yeah,
and they can just take on, hey, this person doesn't need to cut their teeth and get 600 hours, or maybe they do because like they're unionized or whatever, so they have regulations or whatever. But if you're the director or the executive director, probably more so because they've got the money that fund this shit. But I mean, if you're the director, you can just basically say, hey, like this person like up here, and just probably just cut in line of all
mhm.
these other gaffers. And these are just basically like job protection constructs, I would imagine,
Oh
that
yeah,
people need to
like,
go through these like bullshit like criteria. I mean, it's just like going back to like college is a scam. You
yeah,
don't need to waste all this time and money in these classrooms and just hours of bullshit and indoctrination. Like, it's just another construct, and
yeah,
where you spent and cut your teeth to the point where you're like, okay, I'm done with this. Went to do the same thing in selling advertising, and now you're you're here, and instead of just wasting years not doing what you wanted to do, like you just got everything that you needed out of it, took advantage of it for your own advantage, so you could, ultimately do Movies Plus, or
Yeah.
you just know enough to do what's necessary.
Well, yeah, and so it's funny because with Movies Plus, like basically, in my mind, I knew that a streaming platform had to launch in order for me to continue to be like my own business. Because the other option was like, there's not going to be movies to sell for sales agents much longer. So the other option is, go and work for Netflix. Like, I didn't really want to do that at the time. I was like, I want to work for myself. And so what we did was, we talked about it. Me and my wife were talking about it. Like, yeah, eventually we'll have a streaming platform. And then I become a Bitcoiner in like March, April of 2020. Well, I guess I was always a Bitcoiner because I mentioned in the article how this one kid that I worked on his movie with back in like 2010. It was an indie that I worked on, and then with Val Kilmer called Riddle, and then Nick Moras, who this is this kid that he ended up going and making the Rise and Rise of Bitcoin, the documentary that probably every Bitcoiner seen, and his brother, who was like in Pittsburgh here and everything, was like really into Bitcoin. This was like 2011, and he was mining Bitcoin in his basement and stuff like that, and so that was my first intro to Bitcoin, and now I ignored it and all that kind of stuff. So then I fast forward, I end up becoming, we can talk about my Bitcoin journey after when we get into the article, but I become a Bitcoiner, and then that summer, I'm like really, I was like a freedom of speech maximalist and hated seeing all the like trampling of freedoms, and then in September of 2020, I was contacted by the filmmaker who made the movie The Plot Against the President, which was about the Trump Russiagate hoax, which, I'm not a Trump supporter, and people probably don't believe that, but I am a freedom of speech supporter. And the filmmaker, she was like, I think I'm going to get censored. And I was like, well, you're definitely getting censored. I can promise you. You're trying to release a movie like a month before the election about like showing that Trump was not like, he was innocent. This whole thing was a hoax, the Russia thing. So I was like, that doesn't excuse him being a terrible person in other aspects, but I was like, but yes, this very specific thing is going to get censored because they don't want to shine any good light on him. But I was like, I will fight for you. I'll get it on the platforms. So, we got it queued up to try and get it on iTunes and Google and, Amazon and everything. And she said, is there any platform that won't censor it? And I just was like, yeah, my platform. And she was like, oh, you have a streaming platform? I said, yeah, we were going to launch it, in a couple months, but I could like fast track it and like put so much work on my shoulders, but it paid off. And yeah, I had to like slap it together and come up with the name Movies Plus later that night, like, oh, Movies Plus. And
how did that come about? Because I've been thinking about this, because like there's Apple Plus or TV Plus and stuff. I mean, was it just like, fuck it, well, we'll just use this? Or
yeah,
was there any inspiration?
No, like I literally was putting my son to bed and like laying there and thinking, like my mind, because I had told her like 4 or 5 hours earlier, like, yeah, I have my own streaming platform, and so I'm just like laying there like, what is it called? And then I thought Movies Plus, so I'm like, it has to be taken, and I like Google it, and there's no Movies Plus, nothing in the app stores.
Great.
I was like, oh shit. So I run downstairs and tell my wife, I said Movies Plus, and she's like, that has to be taken. I was like, look everywhere, I promise it's not. So we like immediately, grabbed the name, filed all the paperwork and everything, and got it up and running. And sure enough, whenever they wanted to release the movie, Amazon was slow rolling it. So I'd never seen this before. Amazon, like if I would publish titles to Amazon, I'd deliver the files, put everything up. You could see it was in queue. It would take like 1 to 3 days, and then it would be available. Um, and I was sitting there, and it was like that for like a week, and I was like, this is getting weird. What are the odds that a Trump movie is getting slowed down? And I mean, I was putting other movies through that were getting through fine after that.
So, like,
So
before you launched the platform, you were just like being the distributor for all these filmmakers.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So then, so we launch, because it's slow rolling, we launch it on Movies Plus, and I mean, it just does gangbusters. Like thousands of people signed up. Like, I mean, it went nuts. It was crazy. Like, I'm pretty sure Trump himself tweeted the trailer out at one point, and like it was just, it was the weirdest thing, because then, like, you know, the Hollywood Reporter contacts me and is like, hey, we heard this is getting, blackballed by everybody else. Um and so I ended up going off and just like, telling my story of what was going on. And then ended up, if you go on like Google and Google my name, Hollywood Reporter, Trump, you'll probably see it. And yeah, I like kind of just like railed, and then like when I was done talking, I like hung up, and I was like, I don't know what I just said. I was like, I hope it came out all right. So I was so nervous when the article came out. But it was funny in the article, they said we reached out to Amazon, but they didn't, respond with a comment. And then like maybe, I don't know, it was like 45 minutes to an hour later after the article came out, Amazon all of a sudden had it available. But it was a big boost for Movies Plus.
Money talks, bitch.
Yep. And it's just funny how it worked. And like, we people probably don't, I mean, I think I've told this before, but like me and my wife were literally like so like timid, and not, we didn't want to put ourselves in the limelight. We're like, I enjoyed, it was just this comfy lifestyle of like, hey, we're not like killing it, but we're surviving, doing all right, putting money away. And I don't have to deal with any, backlash. And so, I decided to put my balls on the line. And so that was weird. So now all of a sudden I'm in the public eye to a degree. And then we went also, but then once the election was over, we wanted to make sure we stayed away from, like, we weren't just right wing. We were, for any suppression of speech. And then I ended up getting connected to my investors who came on as partners. And it just, they came on, provided some seed money that helped us get the apps developed. And then yeah, we started formulating our plan, and growing and adding titles. And now we're to the point, like, we have a year and a half later, and we have the apps haven't even been available for a year, and we have 250,000 plus downloads. And it's just cruising right along. And in the very near future, there'll probably be, people will be hearing a lot about Movies Plus because of some stuff we're about to announce that Phil knows about, that's going to totally F some stuff up and really, start flipping tables in the temple.
Okay, so I think there's two unofficial slogans for Movies Plus. One is uncut yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Second is burning down the cathedral.
Yeah, I could get behind both. I could get behind both. I mean,
it's just so important, because that is, yes, fix the money, fix the world. And I guess we can segue into Bitcoin now. But fix the money, fix the world. You can't have all this corruption when you have the money corrupted, which corrupts people's incentives. But still, regardless, you need to have the spigot of information not cleansed, just hands off as well.
Mm-hmm.
You need to just have things naturally come through. And then essentially in nature is how order basically like sprouts from the ground, because it's organic, it's grassroots, and whatever works and whatever doesn't work doesn't, and it's
Mhm.
just kind of a survival of the fittest, and is ultimately free market of association and speech. And that's why I
Mhm.
think it's so important as people in Bitcoin say that money is free speech, the freedom to vote with your money. Like Bitcoin ultimately is free speech, not only because it's just code, numbers and digits and characters, but the permissionless nature of it to freely express your values and goals and desires by choosing to purchase or not purchase whatever you want without anyone stopping you. But the same thing has to be applied to freedom of expression and thought and values expressed through entertainment. And that
Mhm.
is what is wrong, not just with the money, but the mainstream media is just trying to shovel down bullshit for people to
And
believe.
people are just sick of it. Like
Yeah,
people are just over it. Like I think it's so obvious, and like that's why Movies Plus is going to do so well, because like even if you're on the right wing, people are just sick of it. Like people don't want to tune into Fox News. You know what I mean? Like people are just
except
like,
Tucker,
yeah,
maybe.
maybe. But it's like both sides. It's like there's just so many of us now that are like looking at both the right and left, and we're like, just shut up. Just shut up. Stop. Like all of us here in the middle, we're cool. We don't care what anyone else does as long as they don't bother us. Leave us alone. And that is really the biggest, like the thing that, made me nervous about it is because it's the biggest threat to the powers that be is not being on one side or the other. It's being in the middle, trying to get everybody to get along.
Objective.
Yep. Because, I've said it before, but the king and queen, they are only happy when they look over the walls of the castle and see everybody's fighting. If everybody's getting along, they start to worry because then they're going to come storm the castle and go, wait a minute, this is bullshit. Like, why are we subjective to you, and why are we your subordinates and everything? So they like the fights between the two sides, because then you're not focused on the real thing. You're not focused on what's really happening. And a lot of us in Bitcoin know that. We're like, you know, you look at things that are going on. Like one of the things, whenever Roe v. Wade got overturned, I immediately was like, what? Why now? What are they trying to distract us from? Like, there's something they're trying to get us stirred up so that we don't notice some trick that's getting pulled. And, you know, maybe it is the money. I don't know.
I mean, it was ultimately a way for the Democrats to get more votes because they are running out of tricks in their hat. And so they're just desperate. And this is how, I mean, what I talk about, like with Davos, they're just trying to use leftism to corrupt and pollute the zeitgeist and people's morale. And so again, it was just used to, create that. Um, um, I'm having trouble with words. Just to create a distraction, but to rally up their troops and their base and their voting constituency. But it's not going to it's not going to work because it's going to be a red sweep come midterms. So they're just
Yeah.
running out of tricks.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's, the powers in general are running out of tricks because, like, here's the fun thing. This is what I love about the world switching over to a streaming world is that, like, you used to be able to hide god awful movies behind like a controlling the narrative, controlling the media, you know, like, let's just say, for example, Disney makes terrible Star Wars movies and they're horrific and they're terrible movies. They're poorly executed. The only thing that's good about them is the visual effects and the things that, like, the average filmmaker doesn't have their hands on. Well, Disney then goes on a campaign of, they have this monopoly. Like, if you don't write something good about the movie in a review, then you're not allowed at the next screening. You're not given access to the next screening, and therefore you can't write an article for your job. So you'll literally lose your job because you no longer getting access. So you have to give all these puff pieces and fluff pieces to Disney, and it tricks people into thinking, oh, that Star Wars movie looks good. So and so gave it 4 or 5 stars. I should go see it. And or any of the Marvel soy movies that are just so weak, and they get these inflated numbers, these huge box office returns, and occasionally they have duds. Well, now the proof is all in the pudding. Like, they can't manipulate box office. They can't do that. All they can do now is they release movies. Yeah, there's the theaters are coming back a little bit, but like, really, it all comes down to, are people watching? Like, if Disney does not come up with good stuff, then I will cancel my Disney Plus subscription. If Netflix stops coming up with good stuff, I will cancel my Netflix subscription. I actually probably will put my Netflix subscription on pause because we don't really watch much on it. And like, I was waiting for, so I watched Ozark. Last season came out in May. Peaky Blinders last season came out in June, and the most recent season of Stranger Things just wrapped up last week. So it's like, and I watched all those, and I was like, I can't think of a thing on Netflix that I need to
Yeah.
watch in the near future. So like, they're all these platforms are they they can't use the box office as this huge boon of cash anymore.
Yeah.
They have to produce content that people want. And they don't really know that yet, or they haven't fully accepted it, which is why Movies Plus stands to benefit, because we are going through things with a fine-tooth comb, and are producing stuff that people want to see.
Yeah.
And
What is that process?
of figuring out what people want.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the easy
Other than
thing,
just like, people getting silenced. Because of course there's gonna be a demand for something you can't have, just like telling a kid you can't have cookies.
yeah. I
But
mean,
other
yeah,
than that,
it's easy right now because like people are getting silenced, so we can target those. Um, but like, really, it comes down to like telling good stories.
yeah.
So I'll tell you, like, there here is the problem with where Hollywood is in their storytelling capabilities.
Oh boy.
Um, is like, I believe, this is really arrogant, so but I'm just going to say it, that I and someone else I know that would work with me, we have a collectively one of the best understandings of stories and how they should be told. Um, and so you look at, have you seen the movie Interstellar?
No. There's so many movies I have not
Okay.
seen, so you're gonna need to send me a list because,
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
you're gonna
even
have
in
to.
everyday conversation, they're like, Phil, what the fuck is wrong with you? You have not seen this movie. Nope, sorry.
You got to see Interstellar,
So
man.
we'll work on that.
Um, well, so in Interstellar, for anyone that's seen it, um, let's just think about how well that movie's written, how well it's done. Yeah, sure, it's got space and all that fun stuff. Before he even goes into space, at the 20-minute mark of the movie, Matthew McConaughey has to leave his daughter to go on this interstellar flight to save humanity. He has to leave her, and she's pleading that she doesn't want him to leave, all that kind of stuff. And like, you're sitting there choking back tears in the theater because it's so well done and so emotional, and the character building, the bond between the characters is built and crafted so well, and he was able to do that in 20 minutes. Whereas you can watch the last two Disney Star Wars movies that they made, and over 4 hours worth of film, at no point did I even get that emotionally invested in anything. Um, so you look at Luke Skywalker, like the hero's journey, the real true hero's journey. He goes and refuses to do. He refuses to go. He doesn't want to do it. He has responsibilities. He says, I can't do that. Obi-Wan Kenobi's like, you need to, join me and fight the dark side. And he's like, I don't like the Empire, but the harvest is soon and blah blah blah. And he goes from that to like, then he goes back home and his family has been torched. His aunt and uncle were murdered by the stormtroopers. And it's like, that's the first act. That's right off the bat. And it's like this change in him.
Conflict
like,
moves plot.
Huh?
Conflict moves plot.
Yeah. And so it's like you have this moment where it's like it is so gut-wrenching, where it's like he goes back and sees who is his aunt and uncle, who are essentially his mother and father, sees their burned bodies laying there. And he's like, and he goes back to Obi-Wan. He says, there's nothing left for me. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father, And it's like, so now you're on the journey. Like because nobody really likes the character that's like, yeah, I'm going to be a badass and just go do that. Like in the new Star Wars, that character Poe, I liked him in the first one. In the second one, he like gets his squad killed because he was being an arrogant douche trying to take down a dreadnought, which was something we were supposed to care about. And I just learned about 2 minutes into the movie. And it's like, I don't like that character. Nobody likes that character, but everybody identifies with and likes Luke Skywalker, likes character. There are so many characters like that in great movies that no matter who you are, it's like a Rorschach test. You can see yourself in them. And that's what good storytelling does. And Hollywood has just completely barfed all over themselves with their ability to tell good stories anymore. I mean, good example, at the beginning of The Last Jedi, you have this General Hux who is supposed to be the big bad, guy that you're scared of from the Empire.
Yeah.
And then this character Poe comes up with his one little X-wing and tells him a yo mama joke, basically. Like literally he says, hey, tell him he has a joke, he has a message from his mother. And he does this joke to like embarrass the guy. And the guy looks like an idiot. So like, if your goal is to set up the movie as a joke, then you've succeeded. If your goal is to make the intimidating bad guys a joke, then you have succeeded. But like, do you feel like that's not what they're supposed to do? Like at no point in any of the original Star Wars movies do you feel comfortable watching the Darth Vader or the Emperor or anything like that. And and then to just cap off my Star Wars thoughts, because you have Luke Skywalker who goes on this journey, discovers his father is Darth Vader, will not kill his father. So he sits there and he throws his lightsaber away and says, I'll never do it. I'll never turn to the dark side. And he's willing to die in order to not turn to the dark side and not kill his father and everything like that. And then you fast forward to The Last Jedi, and they were like, Luke had a bad dream and he thought about killing his nephew, and that made him turn into Kylo Ren. Like the guy that literally said, I'll never turn to the dark side, threw his lightsaber away, wasn't going to kill his family and save the galaxy and sacrificed himself, was like, I have a bad feeling that my nephew might kill people, so I'm going to kill him in his sleep. Like, no, that character doesn't make that jump. He doesn't make that jump. So it's just,
there's an argument that like someone like Luke, over years of like neglect and hiding, like turns into a curmudgeonly hermit. And so I guess that's just like another character digression, and that could be like a commentary on fans.
If you do, you have to have a damn good reason to go there, not just, I had a bad dream that he might do something.
Yeah,
like
couldn't that speak on just how everyone at the end of the day, even if you're one of the most powerful Jedis in the galaxy, that you're still just human?
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, there was no development to that angle. There was no arc. There's no arc that gets
well, that's because there hasn't been a spin-off series on it yet, Cory.
Oh yeah, I know. I can't wait till that happens. Can't wait till that happens. So sorry for bearing with me through my Star Wars rants, but I mean, it's just Hollywood in general. They don't know how to tell good stories.
I think we can point at fiat money, right? Because I was hearing actually Tom talk about this Luongo, about how, I don't know if you watched the Kenobi series at all, but just kind of the same thing. There's no like real investment in characters and not enough time spent with them. And
they're just banking on your nostalgia.
No, exactly. He's banking. It's high time preference. We need to like throw this shit out, make everything look pretty. We don't need to worry about like directing and like cuts and editing as much. And we just, as long as Hugh McGregor's out there and he fights Christian Haydenson or Hayden Christensen, whatever the fuck his name is,
Mhm.
and you know, fireworks at the end. That's great. We just, we banked on your nostalgia.
Yep. And it's funny because that's what they do in the Disney Star Wars land down in Florida. I'm like, they made it. Here's how out of touch they are. They made a planet that nobody that's never been showcased in any of the movies be the planet that they show down in Disney. It's like this brand new planet. I was like, I don't want to go. I want to go to Hoth. I want to go to Endor. I want to go to Tatooine. I don't want to go to a planet I've never heard of. What the hell are you talking about? Like that's not how it works. And it's just they've forced so much junk on us and it's just they've really absolutely. I mean, they took a masterpiece, which was the original trilogy, and just absolutely dumped manure and pissed all over it and lit it on fire and just and it's a steaming pile of crap now where like it's amazing. I can't believe that I haven't watched Kenobi or the Boba Fett. I haven't watched either of them. And I'm like maybe I will eventually. I don't know. I just like it doesn't really register to me. And you just you have that loss of good storytelling across the board. Um, I think the Batman, the new one, is amazing and does an incredible job. Um,
Really,
and oh yeah, I mean I've watched it
even
3 times.
that's with the Vampire Boy one.
Yeah, with Robert Pattinson, which he is a badass in it, and he's amazing. Um, and I just think Batman's a better hero than all the other superheroes. Like I like Spider-Man a lot, not the Marvel version. Nothing against Tom Holland, but they're just so all the Marvel stuff's just so watered down. I joke about this, but like I remember in the one in Captain America: Civil War, um, Captain America says something to Tony Stark, and Tony Stark's like, "It just makes me want to punch you in your perfect little teeth," and it's like, ooh. Oh boy, like we got edgy there for a second in a Marvel movie. Almost felt some emotion. Um,
Yeah,
you
there
know,
is a like DC fans are hardcore because like DC doesn't really bullshit, right? They're like
no,
more.
and that doesn't mean that I absolutely hate everything that they did in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's just a lot of it is so weak. And the other thing is they all rely on special effects and not using practical effects and whatnot. So it's just, and don't even get me started. I can't even say it. To watch how loud I say it because my son, if he hears me, my son loves the Jurassic Park movies, and we just started what he watched the first Jurassic Park, which is one of the best movies of all time.
I thought the actual first time I saw that, this is gonna be completely like devastating to you. The first time I saw the real Jurassic Park, first time was when they did like a re-release in like 2012 in theaters. I think it was 3D, but I mean that is of course like Spielberg, but that is an example of a movie that has everything, like the characters, the humor, the like whole story, the scare factor.
It is
It's
it
got everything.
it's one of the best movies front to back all around, and like to the point, like every time it storms and starts getting stormy, I get scared. Not because I'm afraid of storms, but because the way they build up, they're looking at the Triceratops that's sick. Then all of a sudden there's some thunder because the storm's coming and the music picks up and the pace picks up and you start getting this angst about you. And that leads right into them getting stuck outside the T-Rex paddock. And like all that stuff happens. And I swear to God, like ever since I've seen that movie, if it's a daytime and it starts getting stormy, I have this uneasy feeling that I can trace back to that part of the movie. And so yeah, it's just so well done. Whereas like the new ones are so CGI heavy and
A
like,
little lizard spitting poison on Newman in the rain just put an imprint on you forever.
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I probably watch that movie once a year. I watch that. And I'm like obsessed with movies, but yeah, it's just like it's so bad. The newer ones, I feel bad because we're taking him to see the newest one in theaters. We're gonna take him to see it, but like he wanted to see we watched Jurassic Park. Then I showed him Jurassic World, and I was like, kind of cringy. And then we're watching like the second Jurassic World, and I'm like, barf. Like, what in the hell did they do to this? So, we'll take them. It'll be fun because I mean, it's dinosaurs, but it's like, other than that, where's the value in it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There, nothing is urging me to buy a subscription to a platform so that I can watch these new lame movies.
Yeah. And
I mean,
and to speak on that, it's like, how do you avoid as a streaming platform? Because a lot of like the sell is like, exclusive, like you can only get this, whether it's a series or a movie, and then there's like nothing else. And of course, Netflix has a catalog of everything, but they'll have like exclusive stuff. Like they might have like this series, but then you can only get Rick and Morty on Hulu or whatever. But like, how do you avoid as a streaming platform the haunting, like, you hit a brick wall, like no outlet to what cable went through? It's like there's hundreds of TV stations, but nothing to watch other than like the exclusive like movies or series.
I mean, the trick is to manage price, stay affordable, and manage your costs. And I've said this before. So like the best thing that Netflix and any of them can do to try and stop Movies Plus would be to hire me and pay me an amount of money I couldn't say no to. Because I'd write the ship for them and fix it.
Yeah.
But they've been overspending for content for way too long. It's catching up with them. Movies don't cost that much money to make. I mean, they
were
money.
never profitable. Like we talked about this on News by Simple, right? When it like tanked and
yeah,
like, they've been like surviving because of like some hedge fund in Germany or some shit.
Yeah. They can, like, let's just say the newest Star Wars movie that came out, I think the budget was like $300 million. I know for a fact that movie can be made for $50 million. Like, it doesn't cost that much money. There are certain things that do cost money. The Irishman doesn't cost $100 million to make. It doesn't. Sure, there's big salaries for actors, but you also have to like manage them. And like, I think everything is going through a price correction. It's a very fiat thing.
Yes.
Now that you're seeing where it's like getting into, like, now that everything is based on numbers and truth, with like for the subscription platforms, like they can't lie to themselves, like, and say, oh, Mel Gibson's worth X number of dollars. And it's like, well, he isn't. Like, it really comes down to, like, you can look at your streaming numbers and go, okay, we released these Star Wars movies and barely anybody watched them, or, you know what I mean? Or like, proportionally to what we spent on them, it was a loss. And does it make financial sense for us to continue to spend money on that if people aren't watching the content? The answer is no. Then you can go to the actors. It's going to be an adjustment for the actors because their agents are going to be like, I demand, like, he got 20 million last time, he needs 25 million this time. And it's like, nobody watches your actor. Nobody gives a crap about him. Like, so no, I'm not paying him that. Good luck. And you might get it from another platform who's desperate, but they're going to make a bad financial decision. And it also comes down to telling good stories. It has to be good stories again. You have to tell good, no matter what actor's in it, no matter who's directing it, anything like that. It all crumbles if it's a bad story. It all falls apart if you don't have a story there that's good to tell. I mean, how many times have you, like, there are times we go to see movies and at the end, me and my wife look at each other and go, all I want to know is why was that movie made? Like, what was the purpose? That story did not need to be told. And
yeah, it's empty. They banked on your nostalgia because they could.
Yeah. So, it just, for us, it comes down to like, never getting out of that mindset of like being like guerrilla style, like, working, not working cheaply, but like, making sure we're not overspending on things whenever we do produce content.
You
making
have
sure
a reasonable expectation and a balanced budget.
Yeah. And then like, you also have to measure things properly, to go like, okay, hey, let's find a way to analyze and make sure if, like, if we step outside what we've been doing and we do a big, comedy, like buddy comedy movie. Like we have to really closely watch how this performs to see if it was worth it. You can take risks, but like, Netflix and all of them, they were just like, our subscribers keep going up and our stock price keeps going up. So obviously everything's working. And it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
And now that that's the beauty of Bitcoin. I know we didn't talk about Bitcoin a ton, but that's the beauty of Bitcoin is that you get on a Bitcoin world and like you can't lie through money printing. You can't lie through inflation or anything like that, because they sit there with those stupid ticket box office numbers and they go smashes box office records. But if you look at the actual number of tickets sold, it's not breaking box office records. Of course, because they inflate the price and it costs $15 to go see a movie now. Of course, it's going to crush Jaws. Jaws movie tickets were like $2.50. Like, of course, the numbers are going to be huge. So, it's a sad decline in the Bitcoin, not in the Bitcoin world, in the movie world, and with
it's not a decline; it's an evolution, right? And people say this about like money, finance, or the world. Like we're not going through a revolution. It might be a devolution, but it's devolving into like something new. So it's more of an evolution. So it's just a transition.
True. Oh man, I feel bad we didn't even really get to talk about my article. Do you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah.
So what about?
I mean, it was your story, man. I think it was great. It was just like straight to the point, like your experience. I mean, what made you want to write it? What's about? What's the main takeaway people should walk away with?
Well, I guess the reason I wanted to write it was because I want it as a future warning to other people that come into the Bitcoin space in future cycles. Because everybody, if you don't know, you can read it on Bitcoin Magazine. But I basically said I FOMO'd in. I had been paying attention for years, back to 2011, 12, whenever I saw my friend was making the movie about it. And then I kept saying, I'm too late, ignoring it. When it got up to the all-time high in 2017, I was like, this is insane. And then it crashed and I felt justified. But then like I remember being like, oh my God, it didn't die. And I kept paying attention to it. And I was like, oh crap, I should really be around for this. And then I think what really piqued me before the money printing was I had heard that the halving was coming up. And I was like, what's this all about? So I looked like, oh, in a couple months, there's a Bitcoin halving. I didn't put this in the article. And I was like, ooh, the supply goes down. And then that was the first time I like, oh, okay. Like this is going down. There's a decrease in supply, but an increase in demand. Duh. So, by the time I realized they're going to print money like crazy, I FOMO'd in and then enjoyed quite the meteoric rise. And like I jokingly said, by the time I got to the 60Ks in spring of 2021, I was so smart. I was a genius. And it was Satoshi and I that had done it together, just the two of us. Everybody else was just riding on our coattails. And then it fell apart, but then it went back up. And I was like, I knew it. I knew I wasn't an idiot. I knew that it wasn't going to go down. Like, because I was, you see people warn and say you can lose 80% of your value because Bitcoin can drop 80%. And I was like, that's BS. That's not going to happen. And so when it dropped 50%, I was like, oh crap. As one of my coaches would say, your buttholes are so tight you couldn't slide a greased BB up there. And then it went back up, and I was like, it wasn't like last time. I survived. Man, am I lucky that I didn't have to live through a big bear market. I didn't have to live through anything like that. We're going to 100K. Here we go. And then, and then it fell, but it still didn't go down below 50%. We were hovering around 30, grand. And it was like, oh, this is obviously the bottom. Like it doesn't go lower than that. There's no way. It's never gone below its previous all-time high. It's not going to do that. And then over the last couple of weeks, it was just all the way down. And that was the first time that I was like, oh, damn it. I don't know anything. And really the name of the game. So that's the whole purpose of the article, is to just tell people the name of the game that I've learned is to just, you know, head down and work hard, keep your chin up, don't, sulk, and just stack sats. And don't bank on Bitcoin being your life changing fortune. You've got to crush it in the fiat mining world. And if you do that for long enough, I mean, we're talking like 4 or 5 years. If you just, focus, work hard for 4 or 5 years, stacking sats, and don't look at the price of Bitcoin and don't look at your stack, and just keep adding to the pile, keep throwing more on. I guarantee you in 5 years, you're going to turn around and go, damn, holy crap. Because I've seen it from people like that I've talked to, that haven't like they've disclosed a little bit of like, their portfolio, and like we were talking, like of their story. Because I'm asking people, I'm like, how do you get through this? And they're like, and that's the advice I keep getting. You just got to keep your head down. You got to keep, working away and stacking sats. And as we've seen with people that have had meltdowns recently, like what Odell says, I quoted it twice in the article. I couldn't quote it more though, and it's so accurate. It's stay humble and stack sats. A lot of people in this place do that. Look around and follow them. The Swan brothers, Guy Swan and Jeff Swan, they've been around since the first bear market in 2011. So, focus on people like that, who they have been around, they've been here before. They don't get too high, they don't get too low. They just stay humble and stack sats. And you know you'll notice if you look through all the people, like, they don't get into the mania. Those are the ones that are still just kind of like level headed, like the Swan brothers. Preston Pish is one that comes to mind. There's tons of them, but like they didn't get too manic. Like even when Bitcoin was like in the 60Ks, it was like, wow, this is crazy, this is cool. But it wasn't like FOMO in 300K. It was like, stick to the fundamentals, and just expect that it's gonna break down and it's not all gonna work out. Because there's, unfortunately, you can tell, you look on Twitter, and I was one of these people too till recent. And I could see it in myself, in other people, and then I was like, ooh, I think I have a problem. I was too invested. So if you are relying too heavily on Bitcoin to go, not Bitcoin's number going up, if that is your key to, your future wealth, then you're relying on the wrong thing. Because
Pathetic.
You don't know when
Just a
that number is
little.
gonna, yeah, you don't know when the number is going up. So in the meantime, build. I was on a call earlier today, like a straight business call with the Bitcoin racing team. We were talking about that. Like, they're building something awesome with their Bitcoin racing. And we want to do some stuff together that we were talking about. And I was giving them a little insight of what we're doing at Movies Plus. And we all looked at each other and we're like, this is exactly what they talk about when the generational wealth is built during the bear market. Because you have to kill it business wise. You have to provide value to others and increase your stack. And then 5 years from now, whenever Bitcoin's, $250,000 a coin, you're gonna be so glad that you were stacking sats like crazy when Bitcoin was stuck at 20K.
That's right. That was great, Cory. I know you got a hard stop, but we will definitely see each other around. Hope I see you guys around as well, or you see us or hear us wherever you can. We're everywhere. This has been A Boy Named Sue. It's Mr. C to you. I've been Phil Gibson. This has been a great conversation. And don't forget to grab a BitBox02 hardware wallet, our dear beloved sponsors. And yeah, it's all about just, if you dig this, share it out. We're just trying to get content out there, burn down the cathedral, and just put truth bombs in people's ears, because we need it more than ever.
More
Cory,
than ever.
More than ever. Thanks a lot, dude.
All right, dude. Thanks for having me on. This was awesome to be a guest for once. So I'm glad that I hope I didn't bore anybody.
Nah, not at all. Peace.